Highest Mouse Red Songbird in New York City, Part 2, Stories about Eve, Linda, Michael, and Melanie. Jason had been Melanie's brother when she had been Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra. He had sexually abused her then also. She killed him and his brother, who also abused her. Jason came over our apartment to stop Melanie's abortion this life because he wanted her to be born so he could pay her back for killing him by making her eat his shit, which he did. I talked about that in part 1. The other brother that she killed had raped Melanie when she was 16 this life. Cleopatra's bad karma has been paid off. She's in the clear now. Some years later, Jason followed a guy with no legs, an African, to Africa, where he contracted malaria and died 10 days later. I did not go to his funeral. After my sister Helen forced me to see dead bodies in Albert Roberts' funeral home when I was 6 years old, every time a new dead body came in, I find dead bodies empty of the souls, bodies repulsive and grotesque, and funerals I find barbaric and nightmarish. Death is a satanic thing. The Lord above is the giver of life. Let's see, where am I? Linda blamed me because she married Willie, Jason's father. I was shocked that she had even dated him, let alone married him, although we didn't know how bad he was. He had had sickle cell anemia as a child and hadn't attended classes, so he couldn't read. He'd been raised by his grandmother, who Linda used to call Granny. Linda accepted Willie's parents and family because they were not white like her, not pink like her and her dad. My mother had confirmed her conflicts and sense of unworthiness. She didn't like to pay attention to me. She didn't feel that she owed me. When I was 12, she told me she wasn't going to give me the 35 cents to pay for my lunch any longer. Once after I'd grown up, she revealed that she got to sleep nights by dreaming she owned an orphanage. It was impossible for me not to feel sorry for my mother. She had the saddest story I'd ever heard or imagined. She thought she was loving me when I was 6 years old, and she sent me to live with Antony and Brother Wright because she said if ever I wanted to return to my home with her, I could. I couldn't hurt Antony and Brother Wright's feelings by saying I need to be with my mother and father, but since my mother won't provide me my father, I needed to at least be with one parent. She had said I could come back home when it was time for me to go to Burt High School when I was in 7th grade. It was close by where she lived with Helen and Shorty, my mother's third husband, a disgusting man, a Freemason. He had a so-called good job. He slaughtered, a mild red slaughtered, and he slaughtered cows for a living, conking them in the head with a hammer. But when school ended, I packed my bag, and even though I felt sorry for Antony, they never had children of their own. Helen said it was because of a botched abortion that rendered her unable to have a baby. I have 4 children, raised 3, and I have no children coming to see me except Robin came to see me on her way to pay respects to her dead father. I guess I was supposed to tell the children, don't ignore me after I spend my life, energy, brains, and money teaching you how to get on in this world. My mother never told me that. I just knew after she saw to it that I didn't die of starvation, that I didn't have to go about naked, and that I lived in some sort of tacky house, that I owed her. I knew that. I sent her money after I left home. I visited her often. I wrote to her. That's after later, after I got Talk and Share to a point of being helpful. I did Talk and Share therapy on the phone with her for hours, and I got her to start writing poetry. Although she started me interested in poetry when I was young, she recited a poem. She said a little boy went to camp and he wrote his dad, "No mun, no fun, your son." His dad wrote back, "Too bad, too sad, you're a dad." So that was the first poetry I ever heard in my life. And when, like I said, when I grew up, I got my mother into writing poetry. So she, at the end of her life, had an interest. She had something to do. She enjoyed writing poetry. And we did Talk and Share therapy on the phone. So she did not have a bad ending. And Helen let her come to her house, her apartment, house, whatever it was, and visit with her. All right, it's Mild Red Songbird. I got to go to lunch now. I'll talk to you again on the next video. So long.